Good day, waterhole wanderers, and welcome to Live at the Waterhole on this wonderful Tuesday morning in South Africa. So we're starting today at the basin at Cylinder Reserve in Botswana. My name is Jan Herbst, I'm the owner of this voice, and I'll be your presenter for today. So, as always, just a quick reminder that this is a live and interactive experience. We love to hear from you, so send your comments or questions or ideas through on any of our various social media platforms. The details you'll see on the left-hand side of your screen, at the bottom of the screen. So today we're exploring the world of wildlife documentaries, from old favorites to the latest cinematic releases. I want to hear from you what you've watched recently, what's your favorite documentary, and what should we all add to our watch lists. So let us know. I have a whole list of interesting books to read after the last episode that I did. So I'd love to find out from you what would you recommend as a very good documentary, wildlife documentary to watch. So Mercedes Bean says, greetings Wild Earth crew and chatters, happy Tuesday. Thank you very much Mercedes Bean, and a very happy Tuesday to you too. And it looks like a very lazy Tuesday for these hippo over here at the basin. Perhaps quite a hot day over there, very humid. So Cheryl says, keen to see what happens today. I'm also very keen to see what events unfold. It's always full of surprises, the waterholes. And I'm sure with all the different waterholes that we have, all the different cameras, shall I say, at all the different waterholes, that we should find something interesting. And even if you don't see something very animated, there's always something interesting happening at all the different levels, on the microscopic level or even at the macroscopic level. So the things we can see and the things we can't. So I've got a question from Aaron over here, asking, can hippos go a week without grazing by storing fat like underwater camels? So I imagine the fat would help them as a sort of reserve, an energy reserve, but I'm not sure whether it, they can go weeks without grazing, but I think the hippos do have to eat quite regularly, not as regularly as a large elephant or perhaps rhino, and this is due to their habits of being in the water most of the time. They don't expend as much energy walking and running around like elephants or rhinos do. So for their weight, for their mass, they don't eat that much compared to other animals their size. So I didn't quite get where we're going to next, but let's go see what's happening at some of our other cameras. Okay, looks like we've got a few elephants over here at Menokwena along the Buteti River in Botswana. And as always, the elephants, being very fussy drinkers, they tend to go for the fresher water coming out of directly out of the pipes or the taps or whatever it is that's filling this little water hole over here. As you can see, there's plenty of water there in the foreground, but they'll rather huddle around a tiny bit of water trickling out of this drum. And I think the drum is probably cemented into the ground to ensure that these elephants don't rip out the pipes or the tap, as they're very capable of doing, and which they often do. I've mentioned quite a few times before that elephants can be quite frustrating or quite annoying for some reserve managers, as they're constantly having to fulfill the role as a plumber, fixing pipes and taps and all the different fittings which the elephants end up breaking or ripping off. So I've got a question here from Naledi, asking, do hippos fights end in bloody clashes that scar hides but rarely kill rivals? So it isn't too often that, or at least that I know of, that hippos die in fights, but they do tend to fight until both or either of them are bleeding profusely. And luckily that fat and that thick skin of theirs also prevents damage to internal organs, and prevents them from getting very big, nasty wounds, which would be difficult to heal properly. I've got a question here from Teo asking, how do calves coordinate play charges to build strength against future lion threats? So I'm assuming you're referring to the elephants. So that's quite an interesting question, and one which I'm not sure I would answer entirely correctly, but I think they don't really coordinate play as much as they just play whenever they feel a burst of energy or when they're feeling in a playful mood. Much like humans, we sometimes feel playful. Maybe we have a lot of dopamine or serotonin or whatever it is, the feel-good hormone that's released into our brains and perhaps that's what makes the elephants also feel giddy with excitement, and then they start playing around, or they might be a bit frustrated, much like a young human, a child would. Sometimes they take out their frustration by lashing out at their parents or perhaps at their peers. So Recycled Teenager UK says that at the moment in the UK they're televising Kingdom with David Attenborough. It's amazing. So David Attenborough, I'm sure many would agree, is probably the voice of wildlife narration, and I'm sure, as most of his programs are, is visually spectacular and very well narrated, and with some very interesting facts. So I'll definitely have a look at that. I wonder if anyone here has watched the Ivory Game. That was also quite a good documentary about elephants and the poaching situation in East Africa. So Ollie says, I suggest the Luanga Lion River Pride documentary, so cool and interesting. So I'll definitely give that a watch. Yeah, it is very entertaining when lions are animated and active, but often when you're on game drive or watching the lions, perhaps here at the waterhole, they'll just be lying about and just being very lazy, because they normally gorge themselves with whatever they've caught, and so their stomachs can expand to 3 times its normal size, and so they can quite easily sometimes eat up to 15 kilograms of meat in a sitting. So obviously they would need to, their bodies would have to work magic to digest all that meat, and so they've got very strong stomach acid, and then they would lie about letting the enzymes and all the good gut bacteria and that work their magic. So they're expending a lot of energy trying to digest that food. So then that's why they lie about quite often. So I didn't quite catch where we're going to next, but let's have a look at what's happening at another camera location. Okay, so we're here at Victoria Falls, Safari Lodge in Zimbabwe, close to Victoria Falls, as the name suggests. And it looks like we've got some sacred ibises over here, a pair, perhaps a monogamous pair. You can see the one on the right is just busy ridding its feathers of any parasites, any mites or ticks or fleas, whatever might get caught in between the feathers. So their feathered relatives, the Hadida ibis, is very common and widespread throughout Africa, well, southern Africa at least in South Africa it's very common, and they can be very loud, and they're active at quite early morning hours, So, and they're vocal, shall I say, in those early morning hours. And yeah, so there's a bit of a love-hate relationship with the hardy-dar ibises in South Africa. They're so iconic of South Africa, but yet many people probably are not a huge fan of them. And the hardy-dar ibis, you'll often find them after it's rained. They'll be digging in the soil. They'll be digging with their long beaks into the soil, and they play a very important role in aerating the soil. So they use their beaks to find worms and other insects which are subterranean, which are found underground. Okay, so I didn't catch again where we're going, but let's go have a look at another location. Wow, okay, this is quite a sight over here. Lots of animation going on, lots of movement. Got probably easily 50 zebra in shot and a few wildebeest or gnu interspersed between them. What a magnificent sighting. Kalahari is one place which I would very much like to visit. It's definitely a hub for wildlife, and I think it must just be so incredible to visit. But obviously you'd need to be quite prepared for the heat. It gets incredibly hot in the semi-arid region of the Kalahari. And the San, who are the first people to have inhabited this region, they were nomadic people, and they managed to exploit this, or shall I say, utilize this environment to their advantage. And it's a very harsh environment. As I said, it gets very hot, and it can be quite dry for long parts of the year. So you'd have to be quite resilient, and it's actually remarkable that these people were able to inhabit this land for so long. So Petula says, I don't know if you say it Petula or Petula, but either way, Petula says, I watched the pangolin walker. It was very interesting. I learned a lot about this beautiful creature. So that definitely sounds like something I would love to watch. I feel like there's not too much that is known about the pangolin. Not many people who aren't interested in wildlife know about the pangolin, and so I think these types of documentaries are very important for raising awareness of endangered species. So Petula, what was it about the documentary that stood out for you? I'd love to hear a bit more about it. I've mentioned before on the show that I've only seen a live pangolin once, and I've seen a dead pangolin once. And so the first pangolin that I saw, I didn't get a very good visual of it. It was burrowing into an old termite mound, and the first pangolin which I saw, which was a dead one, had managed to electrocute itself. So unfortunately, many of these low hanging electric wires on the electric fences, which they call trip wires, sometimes animals like snakes or perhaps a monitor lizard or other smaller creatures, they tend to get shocked if they try and climb over the wire. And then unfortunately the pangolin, when it feels threatened, it coils up or curls up into a ball, and so when it gets electrocuted on its belly, then it will just continue to be electrocuted because it wraps itself around the wire. So it's a very unfortunate thing to happen, especially for such an endangered species. But I believe many game reserves are now doing away with these tripwire electric fences, which is positive news.
My name is Amy, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently.
I get to wake up every morning and go out there and look for cats. I get to create my everyday safari for myself. I grew up in the sort of central eastern suburbs of Johannesburg, fully qualified trails guide and a fully qualified nature conservationist. I love the wild places. I love being in the wilderness. It's probably one of the best jobs I've ever had and probably ever could have.
Morning everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Wow, that was amazing everybody.
Can you hear that? wild is calling.
So they were able to escape the tsunamis and go to higher ground, which I found really fascinating. And so we must never neglect how intelligent animals are and how helpful they can be in alarming us or alerting us to danger if we just tune ourselves into what they have to tell us. Okay, let's have a look at what's happening at Tembo Plains in Zimbabwe. So I had a question here from Ben asking how many ibis species there are and are they all loud? I'm not sure whether they're all loud, but I did have to double check, and there are approximately 30 species of ibis in the world. And I know of in South Africa, we have, as I mentioned, the Hadida ibis, or South Africa's alarm clock. And then you have the sacred ibis, which we saw earlier, the white and black ones, and the glossy ibis, and you have the bald ibis. So yeah, lots of different species that we find here in Africa, but yeah, 30 species globally. So we've got some cute little hippo calves just leaning, resting their big heads on mama's back. Isn't it lovely being so young and carefree, not having to worry about too much, knowing that mom and dad will protect you? Koala Joe says, oh wow, never seen that many zebras together. So obviously referring to the previous image of all those zebra and wildebeest. So Miko was asking, why do zebras mix with wildebeest? Is it for dual threat detection? So that is one of the reasons. But another reason is that the wildebeest are selective grazers, whereas the zebra aren't as selective. They're non-selective grazers, so they pretty much eat most grasses, whether it's very delicious or not. But the wildebeest are after the shorter grasses, which are more rich in nutrients. And so what happens is the zebra, they cut the grass, or they munch the grass nice and short so that it's more accessible to the wildebeest. So it's kind of what you could probably refer to as a commensalism in that regard. So, which basically means that one species benefits and the other species is not harmed nor gains from the relationship. So, but in the sense that they offer each other dual threat detection, that would probably be more mutualistic relationships. So they both are looking out for danger and alerting each other of any potential threats. So I've got a question here from Ria asking, how do stripes vary from subspecies for local camouflage? So with the zebras, you have the three distinct species, which is the plain zebra, or otherwise known as the Burchell zebra, and then you have the Grevy's zebra, and then you have the mountain zebra. And so within the plain zebra you have 6 subspecies, and then within the mountain zebra you have 2 subspecies, and the Grevy's zebra has no subspecies. But I imagine all the subspecies have quite unique patterns, and they've got different morphologies, so they've got different body shapes, and one might have slightly longer legs or shorter legs, or one might have a bit more of a reddish tinge around the face. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but they all have different styles of stripes. And the plain zebra is the only species that has the black stripes going across the belly, whereas the Grevy's and the mountain zebra, their stripes end just before their bellies. So Petula answered my question about the pangolin documentary, Pangolin Walker. And Petula says that it was about a young pangolin, and so it was basically about how it was reintroduced to the wild, and about how someone basically helped to rehabilitate and reintroduce that pangolin to the wild, so that it was able to survive on its own. So thanks for that, Petula. I will definitely give that a watch after the episode or the show where I was asking about everyone's favorite book or favorite author. I wrote down all the names of the books and the authors, and I've created a list now, which I've added to my extensive list of books which I'm yet to read, but I'm very excited to read them, as I am very excited to watch these documentaries. And I think documentaries are quite important nowadays, probably even more so than books, because unfortunately many people don't read nowadays, and it's difficult to force people to read. So the sure way that people can get a strong message across is visually, through documentaries and that. And so I think it's incredibly important, especially in stirring emotion within people, getting people to take action on very important conservation issues. So there's another documentary suggested called Kulu's Journey. I'm not sure what that's about. I don't know if that is the name of... I'm not too sure what that is, but it's on Netflix, so I'll also check that out. So Ilara is asking, do pods navigate murky rivers using low frequency vibrations? Okay, so I just got an update that that Kulu's Journey is the show about, or the documentary about pangolins. So thank you for that. Yeah, so I'll definitely check out Kulu's Journey. So to answer Ilara's question, so you can probably see on the face of the hippos there's these whiskers, and so whiskers can detect different vibrations, and so they're also used to sort of see in the dark, if you can term it that way, or in murky water. So hippos do use those whiskers to kind of find their way about in the murky waters. So I imagine they also use their low frequency vibrations. They are able to vocalize at frequencies which humans aren't able to hear, so higher and lower than what we're able to hear. So okay, let's go see what's happening at Lentor Lodge in Kenya. Okay, so we're at the Great Rift Valley now in Kenya at Lentor Lodge, and we've got olive baboon in picture over here. I incorrectly called them chacma baboons the other day, so I'm definitely learning a lot as we go with this show. And I believe there's 5 species of baboon which you find in Africa. I don't know all the names of the different baboons, but I know you get the chacma, which is very common throughout South Africa, and then you get the olive baboon, which you see in picture here, and then you get the yellow baboon, which is also quite common throughout East Africa, and there's another baboon, which is the species which is the one that you see on the Lion King, Rafiki. And I'll have to double check what species he is, but he's definitely not an olive, yellow, or chacma baboon. And we've got an impala as well in picture. And you can see this baboon is just busy foraging, busy looking for some insects on the ground, perhaps some termites. They also love scorpions and lots of different invertebrates. So I have a question here from Teo asking, why do females swell with colorful rumps to signal peak fertility? So baboons have very good eyesight and they're able to see in color. So unlike a lot of other animals which can't see in color. And so much of their communication is done visually. So they use their facial expressions or animated movements to signal their emotions or to communicate to each other. And so I think the swollen rump, which is very colorful, is a visual display. So it's quite a good visual cue for the male baboon to signal that she's ready to mate. And I don't know if you could see there, but this male baboon, you can tell it's a male by looking there in between the legs. He's got something on display over there, and you can see if you look closely, he's got very large canine teeth, very sharp and long canine teeth, which they like to display when they're upset or angry. And it can be very intimidating if you've ever encountered an angry baboon. Perhaps you've walked into a house or your own house, and the baboons might have raided your pantry or your fridge. And when you walk in, they feel cornered, so then they try and escape, and they might show those very long and intimidating canines. And they're incredibly loud as well, so that can also be very intimidating. So Marcus is asking, do males emigrate at puberty to avoid inbreeding traps? So they do. They get forced out of the troop by the older male baboons. So they will ensure that once the younger males have reached sexual maturity, that they get chased away to prevent any inbreeding. So nature always has a way of preventing inbreeding, or preventing or ensuring that there's a good flow of genes and there's not too much inbreeding. So Chris is asking, are those facial injuries from other baboons? And yes, I imagine they would be, unless perhaps one of them was attacked by a leopard or maybe even a lion, perhaps. It's unlikely that it would be a lion, because lions aren't fast and agile enough to catch baboons, but they are quite a delicacy for leopards. So leopards definitely would be they're definitely fast and agile enough to capture a baboon. And the leopard would definitely not go for a strong male, as leopards are solitary hunters. So they don't have the advantage of hunting in a pack to take down larger prey. So leopards are very strategic in what they choose to hunt, because they don't want to risk injury, because if they can't hunt, then they'll die of starvation. So these baboons look so similar to the Chacma baboons which you find in South Africa, but they are distinct species and not subspecies. Getting a little bit of water before going out foraging again. And so baboons aren't as water dependent as many other animals. They are able to get much of their moisture from the foods that they eat. So they do eat quite a lot of plant vegetation. And so from the leaves and the fruit, they're able to get a lot of the moisture which they require. It's so funny watching how that baboon over there is sitting with these hands hanging down like that, with his arms over his knees. It's definitely the Makulu Nduna, the big boss. Or at least he thinks so. So Simon is asking, do they have different calls for different threats? And yes, they do. I think they've got upward of 30 different vocalizations. Obviously, it's difficult for humans to decipher which one is for which, but I've definitely heard while guiding before, when leopards are about, they definitely give a different call than when a snake is about, or perhaps when a lion is about. They don't feel as threatened by lions as they do by leopards, or perhaps not as threatened by snakes as by leopards. So it would be a much louder, probably, distress call that they give for the leopards. So Francois Stapelberg is asking, is it a common occurrence in South Africa for baboons to enter your house? So in areas where baboons are quite prevalent, it would be quite common. I know not too far away from where I live in Beatties Bay, which is quite close to one of our camera locations, Stony Point. They have a big problem with baboons. And in Cape Town, they also have quite a big problem where baboons have become too used to humans, and because often tourists and some people would feed the baboons. And although this may seem like a kind gesture, it's actually the worst thing you can do, because it makes the baboons dependent on human food, and then they become very relaxed around humans, and humans also tend to become too complacent around the baboons. So let's go and check out what's happening at Tau Game Lodge. Okay, so we're at the Tau waterhole. on the Dikwe Game Reserve, the northwest province of South Africa. And we've got, looks like quite a few species. I don't know if those are species there in the background, animals there. We've got an elephant and some impala in shot. So as I was mentioning, baboons, they, in areas where they're quite common in Cape Town at least, they tend to get into people's houses, and then they'll immediately go for the very sugar-rich foods, because sugar it gives you a lot of energy, or it gives the baboons a lot of energy, very rich in energy and glucose. And so often monkeys and baboons, you'll find they tend to go for the sugar, the white sugar, which is found in many people's pantries. So it is quite an issue, as I mentioned, in Betty's Bay. So there's actually people that are employed they created a sort of virtual fence, and so they've employed people to carry paintball guns and to ensure that if the baboons get too close to human settlements, that they shoot the baboons with the paintball guns. And it's a very unfortunate thing, because you never want to harm the nature, but it seems like it's the only thing that works, rather than killing the animal. So, and I imagine they do everything in their power first before resorting to shooting the baboons with the paintball guns. Okay, it looks like we've got 3 different species here in picture. We've got an Egyptian goose, or some Egyptian geese, and we've got yellow-billed stork, and then we've got a red-knobbed coot in the foreground there, with the white face and the 2 little red knobs on the top of its head.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Ria, you say the best kind of roadblock? Absolutely. Look at this.
Hello, girls. here with a male leopard.
Buteti River, and it looks like these elephants haven't moved since we last saw them. Trying to get every last little trickle of water coming out of that tap over there. And you can see sometimes elephants have different colorations, and that's all dependent on the type of soil in their environments. So as we know that the elephants, they love layering mud on their bodies because they don't have very many sweat glands. They have a couple of sweat glands, excuse me, between their toes, but other than that, they're not very good at regulating their body temperature through sweating, much like, unlike humans, which we're very dependent on sweat to keep ourselves cool. And so the mud which they use to cake their bodies with will determine the shade of grey or brown or red which the elephant then takes on. So Ilara was asking, do the long legs of the storks, does it make them unafraid of crocodiles? So I don't think so. I think they'd still have to be very alert, and I think the long legs is more to prevent their feathers from getting wet so that they don't get cold, I'd imagine. And I'd imagine they also have, they're able to detect a lot of movement from those legs of theirs. Much like the bills of an African spoon bill is able to, it's very sensitive to vibrations, and so it's able to detect movements quite easily in very murky and unclear water. Very lazy Tuesday afternoon for these elephants in picture. And see them flapping their ears to cool themselves off. So it's 33 degrees Celsius there at the moment along the Buteti River. Okay, wow, looks like we've got an African fish eagle in view over here in the camel thorn farmstead in Botswana. also along the Buteti River. Such a stunning bird, very iconic of the African bushveld. So what's quite interesting about the African fish eagle is that they're actually not what we refer to as a true eagle. So true eagles have feathers all the way down to their feet or their talons. So it is actually, strictly speaking, incorrectly termed an eagle or a true eagle. And so they are excellent hunters, using their incredible vision and their very sharp talons to catch fish, and their very sharp beak or bill to tear chunks of meat from the fish that they catch. Oh, there he goes. That was a lovely sighting of the fish eagle. It sounds so peaceful there at Camel Thorn at the moment. And you can hear sounds like the whistling ducks in the background. And you can also see the blacksmith lapwings. And you can't hear them at the moment. So please do keep those questions and comments coming. I still love to hear from some of you what your favorite wildlife documentary is, and what would you recommend that I watch or that we watch. Looks like Azumi has just caught visual of is that a hippo? Yeah, it looks like interesting looking rock, but that is a hippo. Or as one of my old colleagues would say, the rhino of the water. You'd almost think, if you just quickly glanced at it, you look at the ears and at the back, that it would be a rhino. So Edna is asking, are the African fish eagles called flying lions. So I'm not entirely sure about that, but it would be quite an appropriate name for the fish eagle. I do know that these hippos are incredibly dangerous. If you're ever caught between a hippo and the water. So generally what they tend to do is if they feel threatened, they'll run towards the water where they feel the safest. And if you happen to be in the path of that hippo and its safe haven, then it will not hesitate to kill you or to trample you or use its very, very long canine teeth to inflict some serious damage onto your body. And so unfortunately many people in Africa have been killed that way, because in many places in Africa, in rural Africa, people still are very much dependent on fish for their protein, and so people tend to use the hippo's grazing paths, which makes it quite easy to access a river, and so sometimes people are unfortunate to get caught between the hippo and water when using these hippo paths, because hippos, they leave the water at night time and then they go out to graze. They spend the evening grazing, and this is to protect their very sensitive skins. Their skin is very sensitive to the sun. So Erika is asking, is it true that fish eagle only choose one partner in their lifetime? And yes, it is true, Erika, that fish eagles are monogamous, so they only choose one partner in their lifetime. So let's go and check out what's happening at Founder's Lodge. Perhaps we've got the non-water rhino. Okay, wow. You can see this camera is spectacular. It's like HD, really getting a very nice image of the incredible patterns of the zebra. Very vibrant, the colors on display. It's actually so relaxing and soothing just watching them and just listening to them wade through the water. Yeah, we've got a bless book in the background. That zebra on the left there looks like it doesn't know what to do with itself. Maybe it got a bit of an itch that needs scratching, using this rock as a bit of a scratching post. So Sally says that her son calls zebras kwekwe's because they go kwe 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 kwe. So I think that's a very clever name for the zebras. I do love hearing zebras. It's also very characteristic of the African bush. As I've mentioned before, it's one of my mom's favorite animal species. Very attractive animals, the zebra are. And there have been many attempts in the past to try and domesticate zebras, trying to use them as horses, to pull carriages back in the day, but unfortunately the backs of zebra, or fortunately shall I say, depending on how you look at it, the zebras, they have quite weak backs, and they're also still incredibly wild, so they kick back at whatever is behind them. So if they're having to pull a carriage, then they would kick the zebra behind them, or perhaps kick the carriage. So that's a couple of reasons why they were never domesticated. There were attempts to domesticate them, but unsuccessful attempts. So I've got a question for you guys. Which narrator do you think is the voice of nature? Do you think it's David Attenborough or somebody else? So send those comments through. I'd love to find out if David Attenborough is a non-negotiable, or if perhaps there's another voice which you prefer. See the Blessed Book. Maybe the Blessed Book has something to comment. Okay, let's have a look at what's happening at Tembe Lodge. Sorry, Tembe Elephant Park. My apologies. We've got a beautiful, looks like a young elephant bull. Got very almost perfect white tusks. It's quite unusual to see, or I don't know if it's because they're quite zoomed out that it looks like the tusks are very white. It's almost as if this bull has cleaned his tusks for us today. Maybe he knew he was coming onto the show, and he wanted to look nice and neat for the viewers. quite interesting to see this elephant swaying his feet like that. There's different theories as to why elephants do that. Sometimes they'll lift their foot like that to sort of indicate irritability to other elephants or to humans viewing them. And sometimes it might just be to put less weight on one foot, because of course they're very heavy animals. So on average they weigh anything between 3,000 to 6,000 kilograms. So 3 to 6 tons. So you can imagine that probably their legs would eventually get a bit tired. So Francois Stapelberg says that we should add The Edge of Existence to our list of wildlife documentaries. It's about human and wildlife conflict. And that is definitely a topic which is becoming more and more important to discuss as human settlements start to encroach more and more into natural environments like the Amazon, for example, or places in Malaysia. I believe a lot of the indigenous rainforest that is being removed to plant palm oil. So you need to think about what you're buying. So if you look at the ingredients of many of your favorite chips, or perhaps your favorite chocolate, you'll see that there's palm oil in those treats. And so the palm oil industry is responsible. So we just have a bit of a technical issue, so we're just going to have a look if we can fix it quickly. Okay, it looks like we've got our image back, and we're at Meno Okwena, still along the Buteti River. We've got quite a big herd of elephants. I just love them. I just think they're the most fascinating creatures. And they're just so unusual. If you imagine having your upper lip and your nose combining to form these long appendages, which you basically use to feed yourself and to drink from. So it's rather unusual. And so I have a question here from Elara asking, how do trunks double as snorkels in floods? So the elephant is able to breathe through its trunk, so, but they're also able to breathe through their mouths. So when they are completely submerged and just their trunk is sticking out, they're actually surprisingly good swimmers, elephants are, for their size. And so they'll stick out their trunks and use their trunks as a snorkel, so just a breathing apparatus while their bodies are completely submerged. So Chase is asking me if I've ever been to any of these locations, and in fact I have. I've worked on some of the game reserves which are in at some of the locations. So I did actually, for a while I worked near Hoedspruit, so I'm familiar with some of those locations and also worked within some of those game reserves. So yeah, I don't want to name any specific locations, just to sort of protect the names of them. But yeah, I've worked at a few different places in different roles, and so I've worked as a guide, I've worked in reserve management, I've worked in ecotourism with interns and volunteers, so I'm quite familiar with the different roles in conservation. But I'm always willing to learn and listen to people's perspectives, and one can never know everything. So as Kelly was saying yesterday, the moment that you know everything would be a very sad day indeed. That curiosity and that passion for learning is definitely what drives a lot of us, and I know for me, definitely I get all excited when I learn a new fact about animals or about the environment, and I love sharing that information. I think it's quite sad if you have all this knowledge and you're not able to share it, or if you just keep it to yourself. So definitely I have a great passion for sharing my knowledge of African wildlife. So Chase, have you ever been to any of these locations? I'd be interested to find out if you or any of the other viewers have been to some of our locations. Okay, so let's head over to one location which I'm very eager to visit one day, Victoria Falls. So it looks like we've got it's actually a species which I've never seen in the wild before. But we've got an African open bull. I just quickly had to confirm that it is an open bull because I haven't seen it before, but you can see why it's called that because of that sort of gap that it has in its bill. So I was just quickly looking up a bit about the African spoonbill. As I said, I don't know everything, and I haven't been to many of these locations. So I just had to confirm what I already thought I knew about the open bill. And so they love crustaceans. So these beautiful birds, they use that gap in their bills to aid them in gripping these crustaceans. So it helps them with gripping crabs or mussels or frogs or small fish. And it's such a wonderful sighting for me, seeing this lifer. It looks like this white thing floating over here has sort of caught its attention. So Dan is asking if this bird is closely related to the black stork, and I'd imagine so, because they're all part of the stork family, so all have the sort of characteristic long legs and the long bill, and they also use those long bills to detect movement in the water, detect vibrations. And so, very efficient feeders these, all the storks are.
Oh, yes, there's a leopard. I've got a leopard here. My name is Cedric, and behind the camera with me we've got Mussels and Paul. Well, it is Feline Friday.
Best sighting I've presented. I found myself with wild dogs. We chased the dogs around, chased them around. They ate an impala. We got the end of that. Then another impala went into Gowrie Dam down the road there, and the wild dogs went around. Eventually the impala came close to the bank. One wild dog went and grabbed it and then just pulled it out and just did what wild dogs do. It was an emotional experience, but it was very, very special.
There's some
Ellie's that we're approaching now.
The light on her as well is absolutely gorgeous.
So we are going to enjoy the rest of this sunset.
Wow, this is absolutely crazy.
And thank you for joining us. For myself and Cam, we will see you next time.
Out here, every moment counts. As a Wild Earth explorer, you won't miss a thing. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free, 24/7, and rewind if you want to catch something again. Enjoy behind-the-scenes videos, fireside chats, and early access to travel offers. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
Okay, it looks like we've got some comments over here. So from Moonlight at Midnight says, for his love and enthusiasm for all that is nature, it has to be Sir David Attenborough. So answering the question which I asked earlier about which narrator do you think is the voice of nature. So I think, yeah, I would agree with you that David Attenborough is probably the voice of nature, the voice of nature. But Melinda says that I think Ben Coley can take over from Sir David one day. His voice has a similar calming but expressive tone. So definitely Ben Coley is definitely quite an inspiration for me. I met him quite a few years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and he does these talks on stars. So he's quite a specialist when it comes to astronomy, and his wealth of knowledge is just unparalleled. And also, I couldn't agree more that his voice has a very calming but expressive tone. So it's very very difficult to match him and his competencies and his abilities, but I do try. But he's definitely up there. And also James Hendry, I think he's also, well, he is a big inspiration to me. I think he's just incredibly entertaining and very creative, the way he writes and the way he talks. And he's also quite a good musician, so he's very good at playing guitar, for those of you who've seen him play guitar on YouTube clips. So keep those comments coming. Okay, let's have a look at what's happening at Camelthorn. In the Machadi National Park. Oh, lovely. Got I'm not sure what, if that's a, I think it's a knob-billed duck. I'll quickly have to double check that. So that is the spur-winged goose. So quite a bit bigger than most ducks. So the males can get quite big, 5.1 kilograms. And the females generally weigh about 3.5 kilograms. So with the males, their red facial skin is more prominent and extends beyond the eye. It's actually been a while since I've seen a spur-winged goose. You become a bit rusty with some birds and some animals if you haven't seen them in a while. So I have a question here from Helen asking if the spur-winged goose are the biggest geese that you find, I'm assuming, in Africa. But I think, yeah, in southern Africa they are the biggest that you find. But in terms of the rest of Africa, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe one of you could let me know. And what do we have over here? Is this the female, it looks like? Yeah, so we've got the female. So you can see they're quite visually different. As you can see, the male has a bit more white on its face and on its rump and on its legs. So they're quite widespread throughout southern Africa. They're pretty much found everywhere where there's water in South Africa, except for Lesotho. Well, of course, Lesotho being another country on its own. But unfortunately, they're not found that high up in the very mountainous and high altitude Lesotho. So Chrissy UK says that my voice of nature is a passionate British conservationist, filmmaker and artist, Robert Fuller. So I can't say that maybe I've heard Robert Fuller, but I don't know the name, to be completely honest. I also think Stephen Fry would make an excellent wildlife narrator. He did a show not too long ago. I think it was in the early 2000s that he did a show called A Last Chance to See. I think it was also broadcast by the BBC, and that was a really interesting show. They actually had an episode which was dedicated to the northern white rhino, which is a subspecies of the white rhino. which has been declared extinct. But there are efforts to try, and I believe there are some frozen eggs or something, and there are efforts to try and bring them back. It looks like these two are walking around as if they're chafing on their legs, or perhaps they've got a wedgie. Oh, see, we've got another male in picture. So Chrissy, can you maybe tell me in what programs I can find Robert Fuller? Okay, so I've got a comment here. So Robert Fuller is known for his deep understanding of British wildlife. He has produced documentaries on the species like weasels, kingfishers, and owls. His films often capture the secret world of animals. So that sounds quite intriguing. I'd love to watch his stuff, because it's not often that these wildlife filmmakers cover the lesser or the less popular species. Okay, so let's have a look at what's happening at Moela. Okay, so we are at Moela Safari Lodge along the Buteti River, where we've got a small herd of elephants. You can see those footprints of the elephants that they leave behind there. Those create little puddles over there in the mud. And they're just massive. You can just see a little blacksmith lapwing just to the left of the elephant drinking from the trough over there. And you can just see the size comparison, how much bigger these elephants are to that lapwing. It's just incredible, the diversity of life, the biodiversity. So Helga says, our very own Wild Earth Steve Love, and his closing words as the sun sets. So that is what Helga thinks is the best wildlife narration voice. Maybe one day I'll get there. One day I will also impress with my wildlife narration skills, but it is not this day. So I've got another question for the viewers. So, which wildlife moment do you wish you could have witnessed in real life? Perhaps it's a moment on Wild Earth, perhaps on one of the documentaries that you saw. I'd love to hear what is a moment that you think would have been just so much better had you witnessed it in the flesh. I can just think of the sighting we just had of the open spoonbill. Oh, sorry, the African open bill. If I had seen it in the flesh, I could have marked it down on my list, marked it as a lifer, and I would be one bird species richer. So I can't say that, I can't tick that one on my list because I wasn't there in the flesh.
I'm Ralph, and I'm taking you to Sibuya Game Reserve, which is one of the only game reserves in southern Africa accessed only by boat. We'll stay at the luxury forest camp overlooking the Kariga River with an abundance of bird life and animals grazing on the opposite bank. Luxury tented suites set in a riverine forest offers the perfect place for privacy and comfort. Join me on Sibuya and let's experience it together. Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh! Whoa. This is action-packed.
My full name is Mpho Mthusi Tikani. I grew up in Soweto. My first animal that I filmed said to dog. Okay, no, wait. My first animal that I filmed, I think it was an impala. Best sighting ever, I would say it was actually this year, 2024. But it was this Cedric when we had Mulwati and TP on a waterhole kill. I think we have to cut it.
Join our expert guides at dawn for a live, immersive safari as the bush comes to life.
Found ourselves a chameleon, and look how he's changed color.
Every sunrise brings new discoveries.
Pound for pound, a leopard is one of the strongest cats around.
Ask questions, share your thoughts, and connect with nature live and in real time.
Great excitement, great happiness.
Start your day with adventure. Safari, wine, and waterfalls. The ultimate African adventure. Sip South Africa's finest wines. Experience a world-class safari among Africa's iconic wildlife. And stand in front of Victoria Falls, one of the natural wonders of the world. All this can be yours with Wild Earth Travel, where Africa comes alive.
So cubs which are a few days old. So lions actually have quite a Sorry, I was just told we are going to move over to Vic Falls. So the lion has a relatively short gestation period compared to other animals. And this is because lions, like many other cats, are born altricial, so which means they're born blind and with not a lot of hair, and so they're still very much dependent on their parents, on the adults to raise them. Whereas many prey species like your impala or zebra or wildebeest, they are born precocial, so that means many of them are able to walk and run within hours of being born. Some are even able to stand and walk within the hour of being born. So it's actually quite remarkable the different strategies that the animals have adapted. So the lion cubs are incredibly vulnerable during this period, this altricial period. And many actually end up dying, so they have a high infant mortality rate. So many of the cubs fall prey to hyena or perhaps other male lions, or even sometimes a python. So it's quite tragic when it happens, but it does often happen. So typically of a set of about 6 cubs that are born, only 3 will end up surviving or reach maturity. So Vicky says that the moment where, or the sighting where 2 leopards were fighting over a warthog with Cedric, was the moment where she wishes she was there. So I can imagine that must have been quite a sight to see, probably very graphic. Okay, so let's see what's happening at the hide. It looks like we've got Abdam's stalk in picture over here. Always get the B and the D swapped around, or always confuse the two. But it's Abdam's stalk. So it's named after a Turkish governor. So these birds are quite widespread and not only found in Africa, but also in the Middle East. And they're actually quite beautiful. That almost looks like they're wearing makeup with that beautiful blue color on their faces. Okay, well, I think it's time to wrap up, as there's less than a minute left. I'd just like to thank everyone, all our viewers, for tuning in today. I think it was a fantastic show, lots of different birds. It was definitely one for the birds today. And thank you for all the viewers that shared their favorite documentaries and narrators and all of that. And I will catch you again on the 18th of December. So I hope you have a wonderful time until then. Have a very happy Tuesday.